going. Cool. Okay. So DevSync, I have good news. I am done with the development of the recurrent transfer updates. I have stumbled upon some issues on the CLI wallet part because basically now we add like a unique ID at the end, uh, so that you can specify the pair. The issue with that is that there is a way to set up a parameter as optional, and somehow I cannot get it to work. The CLI wallet always asks for it. So right now I made it mandatory, but I'll probably come back to you guys offline for some help on that. Because right now it basically broke all of the tests because all of the tests are now expecting an extra parameter. So I'm in the process of fixing all of the tests. I saw that 2 weeks ago Bartek put an issue on me regarding a bug in recurrent transfers, so that's being fixed. Also, I'm hiring a new dev, which is here, Lumix. She will be helping me do stuff with HiveMind. Mostly, we'll see where she lands in the end. But yeah, I expect the next month to be a bunch of onboarding tasks here and there. And yeah, I think that's it for me.
Okay, great. Well, nice to hear new developers joined us. Welcome. As far as we've been working on a bunch of different things, I guess as always, but on the block trade side, we've been working a lot on the Dockers for both Hive and Half. We had a couple problems reported with related to Half where when somebody would like shut down their Half node, or if it shut down its own for whatever reason and they restarted it up, they had a problem restarting it. And we found there were two problems that were tending to, well, one was the more serious problem, which was a permissions problem, where sometimes if the external system wasn't set up, the internal Docker processes weren't able to properly access the external files. So those were just really permission problems in somebody's local system, but it was hard to troubleshoot those problems because the permissions errors weren't showing up on the console. So we really made two kind of fixes. One fix, which was we made a change to make it more difficult to have a permission problem, and second of all, we set up the Dockers in like an attach mode so that now if there is any kind of error like that, not necessarily a permission problem, but some kind of error, it'll more likely show up on the console where someone who's maintaining that Half server will be able to understand what the problem is easier. So along with that, another thing we've been doing for Half is we've been looking into how to control SQL resources, Postgres under Postgres, and this comes up both for Half servers now because somebody might be hit with queries that take a long time because we don't have any real limiting factor on how long a query can take right now. And also it's even more important. This is going to be an important feature for when we start working on I guess we could say start working on the smart contract platform that runs on top of Half, because there it's going to be critically important that smart contracts don't, for instance, run too long or take up too many resources. So we've been basically working on this new subtask to both monitor Postgres resources being used and also to terminate queries if they take too long. So I think like a sort of like a query watchdog, or we've also possibly referred to it as a query governor. This task of monitoring and measuring query times. So for measuring the query times, right now we're looking at using a pgstats extension. So and using callbacks. So it's probably going to be a C++ extension that measures when the query starts and also when it ends, and then can signal to abort a query if it takes too long. And some other things we'll need to look at is potentially measuring the data stored by a smart contract. So again, we can cost that out appropriately. So that's kind of where we are on the smart contract stuff. It's really preliminary phases, really, I'd say. Just sort of, but obviously measuring resources used by smart contracts is going to be one of the most critical things. We've seen in the past a lot of smart contract platforms have had severe problems in this area, so we need to address those issues early as possible. Other things going on, we're probably going to deploy a new version of Develop to Master. In other words, we're going to do a new release soon for both Hive and Half. And so these releases will, on the Hive side, uh, it's really the major changes there are to help Half itself. So we've switched to this new mode I've talked about in the past where we'll be storing operations as binary data. And so that'll dramatically lower the amount of space used by a Half server because most of the space is used by the operations table. And by storing them in binary format, we're significantly reducing the amount of storage space required. Um, we've been testing all this stuff, these changes, especially the binary storage changes, uh, both in Hafa and HiveMind, and also testing the block API that runs on top of this. And so far, the performance has been good. The only thing we still yet to do is we need to test it on production, and I think we're planning this week to do final tests on our production. So, in other words, our production server api.hive.blog will actually be served up by this new version of Half and Half that have the binary format data. That'll be really the final test. But like I said, our synthetic tests, which are just making API calls to it through like a Python script, there we've already seen performance seems fine so far. But it's always good to test the real thing just to see any unexpected issues can arise. But after we've done that, then we'll actually merge it to master and it'll be available to everyone. There have been a number of improvements to Half along the way since not only the binary storage, but some other things that came up when we were working on the Block Explorer. So, for instance, we're now storing some of the dynamic properties data is being stored into the Half database and is available so on a block by block basis. And that came up just recently. I think the Marky Marker, somebody asked me for some data like that, so it'll be there soon. And like I said, it's there now in the develop if anybody wants to work in the development branch before it's released. And honestly, I'd say that's fine. If somebody's experimenting with Half apps, I think it's perfectly fine to experiment with the development branch. The development branch, if it's passing tests, should we only merge stuff and develop after it's passing tests. So we believe it's good to use for at least development of software, if not necessarily production. Let's see what else. So besides Half and HiveMind, a couple other projects we've been working on. I don't think I've talked about this before. I don't recall for sure, but one of the things we're working on is merging in OpenChat, which is, I guess everybody knows, OpenHive Chat is a instant messaging communications protocol we use in Hive. So we're looking at integrating that capability directly into Condenser. So that'd mean you'd be able to do instant messages inside Condenser, aka, for instance, Hive.blog. So that's been going on for a little bit, and I think we're close to release on that. We've done some preliminary tests. We've got it working inside Condenser, but what we need, and it works on its own without Condenser, but we need to have it work together in both modes. And so we ran into some problem having it operate in both modes simultaneously. So that's one last thing we have to do with OpenChat, but I suspect the next week or two that'll be finished. Other things we're working on is how, as Martin just recently noted in Mattermost, he saw a new repo appear called CLive, and that's where we're working on we've been working for about a month and a half now, experimenting with a new command line wallet for Hive. And this it's a Python-based wallet. So this is basically be an alternative to the existing CLI wallet that we have. So we've been designing it from scratch to be more friendly, I guess, to users than the existing CLI wallet. So it has like what you might call a terminal-based UI. So it's not a graphics-based UI. It's not a GUI, but it has if anybody's used something like Midnight Commander or any of these other applications where you have a full screen, but it's text-based full screen, that's the way this thing works. So you can, obviously, it's a little more friendly to use than a straight command line where it's just command response kind of format. And so we developed this new application in part just for our own needs, and also just to meet needs that we thought customers might have, that users might have, that they just found the existing wallet doesn't work very well for. So some of the things we can do is better transaction analysis, being able to save transactions to files, and also targeting offline usage for like cold wallets and things like that. So that's, I guess, and the last thing I mentioned in passing is the Block Explorer. We lost one of the programmers working on the Block Explorer, so we've assigned a new guy to that. But we still have the GUI guy who's working on it, and so we'll be repicking that up in the coming week. And so we'll see how that goes, but I think it's going decently well. That's pretty much where we're at now. So I guess I'll pass it on to whoever's here next. Maybe usually I pass it on to Mwatsi, so I'll go to him now.
Awesome. This month, the last month, I've been focusing on GNS, and I've released a bunch of notification types, support for notifications. That's mentions, for when someone mentions you in a post or comment, auto rewards, curation rewards, comment benefactor rewards, field convert requests, among others. Also done a bunch of refactoring because some of the modules had too much code in them. So now I split the code up. So every type of notification is basically its own SQL file. And now I'm currently working on supporting user preferences, which will allow people to customize the kinds of notifications they receive. For example, you can enable or disable individual notifications, and for maybe transfer notifications, you can say ignore transfers below 0.002 HBD or Hive or something like that.
So these customizations, would this be done through custom JSON transactions?
Yes.
Or? Okay.
Yeah. So you post a custom JSON transaction, and then it updates the state in the database.
Okay.
It's not retroactive though. So when you change it going forward, that's when it will start.
You won't get hit by a thousand messages you weren't interested in before.
Yeah. But yeah, that's been my focus this month. On the experimentation I've been doing with tokens, I have a white paper, but it's not ready yet. I'll probably maybe share it in the next week or so. And I've started writing some code for that. But yeah, the white paper will have more details on my ideas and what I'm planning to do with that. And yeah, that's it from my side.
Okay, sounds good.
Oh, sorry. You also mentioned that someone asked about the global properties being whether or not they're stored in half.
Yeah,
they
so
actually wanted to know whether or not you could see what they were block by block going back in time.
Yeah, that's exactly what. So basically, we're storing a bunch of the dynamic global properties from the DGPO object now on a block by block basis into a table in half. So you have the historical data over time. The driving force was the ability to translate Hive to VES, do Hive to VES calculations, but that was pretty important for Block Explorer, and I figured for other applications as well.
Yeah, I also encountered that with I think it's curation rewards. So cool.
Okay, I guess pass on to someone else now.
Arkanj, perhaps? Okay, maybe not.
Oh, he's coming. I think he just had to.
No, I have nothing. I just want to know about OpenChat. Is it condenser only, or will other front end be able to use it?
Oh, the integration it's certainly open to anyone to use. OpenChat, I mean, Rocket Chat is an open source software, right? And all the integration we're doing to Condenser will also be open source. So in theory, sure, absolutely, I feel it should be able. We won't, in fact, other front ends to use it, Hive front ends to use it for sure. As to the actual details of what they need to do to integrate it, I don't know that I can really answer that right offhand because I haven't looked at the integrations being done for Condenser. I don't know if even Gandalf would have an eye on that, but he might be able to comment some.
But will instant messaging requires a transaction to be broadcast to the blockchain?
No. It's off chain. So the
off chain. Okay.
Connects to Hive is just authentication. So in a way that we can have Hive identity on the chat.
Okay.
So eventually we would like to use some fancy features like end-to-end encryption using hopefully keys that you have from Hive.
Okay, that's clear. Thank you.
I have
Is,
oh, sorry, go for it.
just a question on the same thing. What's the chat system that Pete D uses? That's not the same as this, or
No, it's
No,
different.
that's a different one.
okay.
Cool.
But it never been used a lot,
Yeah.
to be honest.
If you're talking about bchat, then
bchat, yes.
that's something that is actually not really they're going to move forward with. The Open Peak team or the Peak Open team is working on another chat and messaging client as well, that they're going to be hoping that a lot of people will be using. So I know there's going to be an iteration on that. But yeah, the one that you're thinking of is bchat.
Yeah, pretty much. So yeah, I have questions regarding the Hive release that you're talking about. What, because I get the changes for Hive and the JSON binary format, but what changes in Hive are needed for that?
So the way the data is injected, basically, right? So the data is
Okay.
being written to the TAF database in a slightly different way.
Okay.
It's being written directly as binary instead of as JSON data when it's being inserted. The insert queries were changed.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, okay. I don't really have anything more. I'll probably send a bunch of messages for Gandalf/Bartek when he's back regarding the optional format in the CLI wallet, but apart from that, everything is pretty clear on my end. I don't know if you guys have anything more.
I have a question.
Go for it.
Testing recurrent transfers. Should I contact you offline about? I don't know whether I'm technically capable of it, but I'll try to set up an environment where I can start testing. Or is there a test environment coming?
Well, as soon as we are relatively ready for the hard fork, we're probably going to spin up a bunch of testnets. In regards to the actual changes, it's going to be very straightforward, so you don't have to worry too much about the testing. Basically, you just have one extra parameter when you create a recurrent transfers, which is like an ID. And if you specify an ID that already exists, it's going to update the existing recurrent transfer. And if you don't specify one, it's just going to default to the ID 0. And when you use the API to fetch the recurrent transfers, it's going to basically show you all of them with the extra ID so that you can know which is which.
So will I insert my own ID if I want?
Yes.
And then I'll keep a record of
Yeah, pretty much.
what
It's
of other details around those.
It's a UI similar to when you create when you open sale orders on the DEX.
Okay.
You create an ID. So IDs don't need to follow each other; they just need to be unique. And it's
The UID is okay.
UUID is not okay because it has letters in it. But yeah, it's an int 32, so you literally you could do random, and the likelihood of it being the same is very low. But I would not recommend that. Yeah, speaking of which, last time we talked about creating a unified API for transfers and recurrent transfers and like. Has there been any progress on that front?
Who was that to me?
Sorry, that's to Blocktrace.
Oh, well, sorry. I was reading something. Sorry, what did you say?
Yeah, last time we spoke about making a unified API to fetch all of the transfers and recurrent transfers, regardless of their origin. Has there been any progress on that?
Not that I'm aware of. I think it's still the plan, but I haven't heard anything about it lately. I don't know. Gandalf, did you hear anything about it?
No. I think it's
I didn't think so.
Yeah, I mean we have time, so. I don't
Yeah.
know. I'm going to push my changes are already pushed, but as soon as I'm done with adding a bunch of unit tests and functional tests, I'll tag you guys for review.
Okay.
I expect that to happen in the coming weeks. Yeah, that's it for me.
Okay. Yes, that's it then. Well, I guess you've merged and developed, so you saw that there were new tests associated with recurrent transfer.
Yeah,
I guess.
all of them broke, so I'm well aware.
Yeah, of course. Okay, sounds good. I guess if no one else has got anything, then it's short call today.
Yeah, awesome.
Okay,
Thank you, everyone.
thanks, guys.
Goodbye.
Thank you.